Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Timaree will explore all these and more on Eros Evolution on Om Times Radio.
Welcome to Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. This is Dr. Martha Timaree. I'm a clinical sexologist based in Singapore, and my company is called Eros Coaching. That's EROS coaching.com. And this show is all about exploring the link between sexuality and spirituality. Every week I have different guests who explore this topic. And most of the time I invite people who are sexologists or sexuality educator like myself. And today's show title is called Sex with Timaree, Edutainment on the most important topic of all. Dr. Timaree brings a rational, sex-positive, intersectional, feminist, body-loving, empirically-based perspective on sexuality and cheerleads for everyone to feel as enthusiastic about the topic as she is. Sexologist Timaree Schmidt earned a PhD in human sexuality education from Widener University, the accumulation of a lifelong search for rational, sex-positive, empirically-based knowledge about sexuality. She now works as an adjunct professor, guest lecturer, writer, and consultant. She has a podcast called Sex with Timaree. Podcasts over a range of topics and feature amazing, entertaining guests whose lives and professions touch on sexuality. It was named one of the top sex podcasts by Daily Dot, BuzzFeed, and iTunes. Her weekly column, Timaree's Body, appears in Philadelphia Weekly and Philly Now, and her sexuality advice columns runs twice monthly at philly.com. And you can find out more about today's guest by going to her website, Sex with Timaree. That's TIMAREE.com. So welcome to the show, Timaree.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
As finally we meet in this way. So we've been in contact.
It's nice to actually get to know.
Yeah, we've been in contact for a long time.
We've interacted on the internet many times. It was really nice to have you as a writer on my website for a long time. You had really interesting contributions that were lots of stuff that I certainly wasn't coming across on my own. So it really was a nice diversification of what was on the site.
Thank you. So yeah, you had a blog, and then it's evolved over time, and then this was before you had your podcast and before you started lecturing. So I'm very happy, been following your work, and I knew back then that you would be amazing. I'm very happy to see how far you've come.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much.
It's true. It's really true. It's when you came up with your podcast, and that was actually what inspired me to start my own in my own way. And I'm very glad to have you on today's show. Maybe for listeners, you can tell us more about your work and maybe what led you to this human sexuality education.
Yes. So I went into sexuality education pretty young. I really knew what I wanted to do as a young adult, like as a teenager, simply because I heard that someone knew someone who was a sex therapist, and I was like, that's a job? That's a great sounding job. So I started pursuing education around that when I was very young, and became an HIV prevention counselor. I was a peer sex educator. I'd always been a writer, so I started writing sexuality education columns immediately when I went to university, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've been a sexuality educator like most of my life at this point. A lot of it uses media, so the podcast was a natural extension of that. I do a lot of in-person workshops, and as you mentioned, a lot of writing. I also teach students around sexuality just at university, just like basic human sexuality courses, as well as training future sex educators and sexologists now at Widener, which is really rewarding to get to have that kind of influence on sexuality education going forward.
That's awesome. So why sex? I'm sure you get asked this a lot. You just said that you knew from a very young age that you wanted to go into this field, but is there any particular reason, like why this field?
Yeah, I mean, really the question I have is, why doesn't everybody want to? It's so interesting to me, and it seems like it's interesting to everybody. I think that the difference between someone who goes into this field and someone who doesn't is simply a level of comfort with discussing it, because the topic touches on literally everything. You can be interested in history and politics. You can be very into the hard sciences and biology and anatomy, pharmacology. It touches on psychology, sociology, religion, everything, whatever someone might be interested in. Sexuality interacts with that. And it also is something that, I mean, people can burn out in this field, but I think that requires a narrow focus. If someone's doing the same sort of thing all the time, that's possible to burn out on. But because the field is so big, you can move from one thing to another. It's not like you're going to get tired of the paperwork per se. You could switch fields. You could switch from education to counseling, coaching, consulting. There's a lot to do, and I enjoy all these different facets of it. So I think that everyone's interested, but not everyone's comfortable. And I happen to always be very comfortable and enthusiastic talking about sex, and I want to make everybody else feel that enthusiastic and comfortable talking about their own, at least.
So you just mentioned something that now I'm beginning to be curious. So there's sex counseling, sex coaching, which is what I do. You don't work directly with clients, right?
Not usually. There are some times. My schedule literally doesn't allow for too much like that. What I'll end up doing is a sort of variation on that, where we'll be interacting via messages, and I'll definitely refer out if someone requires like a counseling or a more specific help. A lot of what people come to me for is they have a question about a specific issue, and then I will tell them, generally my responsibility is to normalize and let them know they're not alone, that other people have that situation, because that's usually true. It's a lot of the same stuff over and over again, but people don't realize that others are experiencing the same thing, because it's not okay to talk about sex openly. And then so I'll normalize, and then I'll give them the research that is available on whatever the topic is. And then just give them, well, here's some possible ideas about ways to approach. And again, if they need more specific coaching or a counselor, I'll refer them to somebody for that.
Yeah. So this is more what you do as a sex educator. Why did you go into sexuality education specifically instead of some other kind of thing that you could be doing?
Well, I mean, I do lots of other things too. Also, my approach to life is that I want everyone to feel empowered around their bodies and around the freedom to make choices. And so the other things that I go into, I'm also a fitness instructor, and I also am a dancer, and those are ways in which I can make people feel good about bodies and sexuality too. All of the stuff that I do professionally leads towards the idea that sexuality is good, that pleasure is valuable, that each individual person owns their body and gets to make choices around it. And I'm just sort of like a cheerleader for like empowerment around sex. And so I went into this as a form of activism, really, because sexuality is used to oppress people in a lot of ways. And if someone can tell you what to do with your own body, there's really nothing that they can't control. And so I want to make everybody feel like they are the ultimate deciders of what's going to happen in their lives.
Yeah, I know you are also a dancer, performer. So
yeah.
You would be very comfortable with your body. What happens when you come across people who are not so comfortable? What kind of, what's the usual starting point in which you talk with these people?
Well, there's a lot of different ways in which people feel uncomfortable in their bodies, and some of it is just not being used to using it. So if someone lives a life where they drive to work and then they sit all day and they just never get an opportunity to really use their bodies as a vehicle, the first step is just to get practice using their vehicle and to work out, to go for walks, to dance, to, just get experience with movement and those sort of things. And that can be a really big change in someone's life, just simply being present in their bodies. There's also a lot of body image things that come into play because media and advertising are built on the idea that we're not good enough, but if we buy their product, we might be better and therefore more worthy of love. And so it's about deconstructing those messages too and talking about why advertising works that way and why those messages are out there and whether or not they're real and valid.
Yeah. We're talking about many deep topics here. More after this break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting to your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are and help you realize the innate potential you have to heal every aspect of your life. So come heal yourself every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your host, Monica Goyal. Namaste.
Greetings, fellow soul travelers. This is Dr. Amelia Kemp with Om Times Radio. If you've been stressed mentally or emotionally, then join me on Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the From Psychotherapy to Sacred Therapy show, where you'll learn you're not sick, you're sacred. And by aligning with the soul is what makes you whole.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. What if business could be fun? What if business is the adventure of living? What are you choosing? Where do you do business that makes it easier, more fun, or more joyful for you? We'd love to see where you do business. Connect with us on Instagram at Joy of Business or Twitter at Joy of Business. And share your pictures with hashtags BusinessDoneWhere and Joy of Business. Let's change the world with business. The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. You are listening to Eros Evolution on the Om Times Radio Network. Share the show with your friends right now by sending them the link omtimes.com/mobile. With this link, your friends will be able to listen to this show without needing to download any applications. And as you know, iPhones and Android, sometimes they don't work well with applications. So with this link, it's so convenient to listen to all our shows on Own Times Radio Network. We are having sex with Timaree, and this is also the name of her website. And today we are talking about edutainment being the most important topic of all. Sexologist Timaree, she's an adjunct professor, guest lecturer, writer, and consultant, and she's in Philadelphia. So welcome back to the show.
It's super fun to be here.
Thank you. So just before break, we were starting to talk about how your work is very much about being body loving, and it is certainly apt for you to say so because you take it to the next level by being a fitness instructor and dancer and performer yourself. So you were sharing that people could become more comfortable with their bodies through practice, dance, movement, walks. Is there anything else you like to share with regards to coming and being more present with your body?
Yeah, it's a huge topic. The reality of our economy now is that we just get less experience being physical. Most of our jobs are brains and technology, and that's great because it makes things more efficient and it allows access to people ability to lift and walk and run, and et cetera. And it includes more people in the economy. But at the same time, we're doing unhealthy things like sitting a lot, and we aren't getting opportunities to fully use our bodies. And the average person then is just not as equipped to do things like balance or, just identify which muscles are doing what kind of work. So I strongly encourage people to take Pilates and yoga and do things like that, where you just get opportunities to practice being a person. And it's also a nice time to chill out, and you get this workout and all those things too. There's also the cognitive work of really discussing where do our beauty ideas come from, because there's a lot of messaging that says that women are supposed to look one way and men are supposed to look this different way, and that's a universal. And those things aren't true. There are some universals around human attraction. Like, we tend to be attracted towards symmetry. We like clarity of skin because it indicates health. We like youth. Overall, that tends to be a pretty prevailing universal, but that's not without social constructions around it. And the rest of the ideas about what is beautiful, what is sexy, very socially constructed. And if we don't have conversations about that, if we don't make it clear that those things are arbitrary and they change throughout time, throughout space, and are different in different cultures, if without those conversations, people may not realize that they are beautiful because they don't see representations of themselves in advertising and movies and things like that. So it's important to know that all bodies are beautiful and all bodies are valuable, and that these ideas, these really narrow representations of beauty, aren't the only options.
Thank you. Well said. So just to spring off what you're talking about, the images of beauty, maybe you could explain to listeners what sex positivity means, because this is like a big term in our work, and a lot of people are not sure what that means.
That is an area where not everybody is clear, because, for instance, some people hear sex positivity and their thought is that means that you have to be down to sleep with absolutely everybody and do absolutely everything and just be game for whatever. And that's not true. What sex positivity means is that you are the one who decides what you get to do. No one else decides for you. That it's a paradigm. It is a perspective that says that sexuality is a natural, innate, and healthy part of being a human. That pleasure is a valuable thing. That it is a renewable resource. That what matters around sexuality is not that certain things are okay or only certain people are allowed to do things or that only certain bodies are okay, but instead that every body is a good body. Every body is entitled to pleasure. Every body is controlled entirely by its owner, the person who lives in it. And that you are responsible for getting enthusiastic consent for anything that you do with another person. So that means that not just no means no, but that we're looking for a big yes. We're looking for a clear sign that someone understands the consequences of the behavior in which they're going to engage, which means they need to be old enough and competent enough to make that informed decision, and then they need to give clear consent that they want to be involved. And that's an ongoing process. So it's not that someone consents to something and then we can just do whatever because they said yes. It means that sexuality should be a collaborative communication experience where everyone involved is constantly aware of what's happening with whoever else is there. And that we value our partner's feelings and their pleasure and are continuously engaging with them as humans, not just using their bodies to just get our own pleasure.
So from your description and explanation, well done on that.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering whether somebody who calls themselves sex positive also is an advocate for sexual expression. You think?
What do you mean by sexual expression?
An advocate. So besides, is this like somebody who calls themselves sex positive needs to be all of the things that you mentioned, which is having the opinion that everybody is a good body and being responsible for their own expression and enthusiastic consent, seeing their sexuality as a collaborative process which involves communication. Do you think that somebody who sees themselves as sex positive also needs to be advocating for positive sexuality?
Well, I'd like everyone to, but I think that you can identify as sex positive without being an activist too. I take that on as a personal thing that's important to me, but that doesn't mean that everyone has to be super open about their opinions on this stuff. I want everyone to feel empowered in their own lives, and I would like sex education to be accessible to everybody, certainly, which requires a degree of activism. But, individual people can be into whatever they're into, and they can be comfortable with whatever they're comfortable with, and that's okay. Just because you believe that sex is good, and that pleasure's valuable, doesn't mean you have to like everything, or that you have to go out there and fight for other people's rights. I mean, I would like that, but, just at least in your own life, make sure that you empower yourself and that you, are ethical towards partners. And, it also has to do with like how we talk to children around these things. And from the very beginning, the messages we give children about who owns their bodies and what they're allowed to do with them.
Yes, definitely. And we get a lot of these messages really from the time we are born, and having a lot of shame and guilt around sex has to do with really where we come from. I really felt a sense of power from your explanation of what sex positive is. It would be fantastic to have an enthusiastic yes and be able to communicate that easily to our partners. However, it really wasn't easy for me, for instance, where for the most part we're just like unsure and don't want to offend the partner and really just keeping quiet in the bedroom for many years, because I just didn't know how to go about it. There wasn't any modeling for me. So for people who do want to get to that place of what you just described, being sex positive and being empowered, what do you think they could do about it?
In our own lives, it's a process. It's not something we can just one day be good at or feel like we're empowered. It's everyday small choices that require each of us to think about, well, what do I really want? What do I value? What do I like? What am I looking for? And then feeling okay about asking for those things and not settling for sexuality that makes you feel bad or that is an obligation. And when we feel badly about ourselves, really evaluate, is it because I did something wrong that hurt someone? Or is it because I don't fit into a box I've been told that I'm supposed to fit in? Like, this is what a woman is supposed to look like, or this is what I'm supposed to want because I'm, X, Y, or Z type of person. And instead just in every action, really evaluating, what do I want and what do my partners want? What's the loving thing for both of us? What will contribute towards our growth as individuals and as, our relationship? So that requires really unpacking a lot of the baggage that we just carry around, all these assumptions around sexuality that go unquestioned, because we get education, like you said, we get these messages from all sorts of different places, from religion, from government, from family, from friends. And if we never check, how accurate are those things for me? It's harder and harder to let them go.
Thank you very much. So more with sex after this break.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Welcome to The Gathering Around My Kitchen Table on Equilarium FM, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join my guests as we integrate spirituality into everyday reality with vibrant conversations, inspired interviews, and my latest channeled guidance to inspire and brighten your day. I'm Claire Johnson, and together we'll be raising vibrations across the nations.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle. Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
This is Eros Evolution, where sexuality and spirituality meets. We are we are with Timaree, and she has a PhD in human sexuality education from Widener University. And this is an accumulation of her lifelong search for radical, sex-positive, empirically-based knowledge about sexuality. She has a very popular and famous podcast called Sex with Timaree, and it is named one of top sex podcasts by Daily Dot, BuzzFeed, and iTunes. You can find her on iTunes or on her website, Sex with Timaree, and you should definitely check out her podcast, Sex with Timaree. You can also check out her work at phillyweekly.com and philly.com. So just before break, we were talking about sex positivity and how we can start becoming more sex positive in our lives. It includes questioning and unpacking our baggage. I love this term. I think this is new to me. And what I'm getting is also the idea that we can practice asking for things in our lives, being more comfortable with being more assertive, and then this will become easier for us to practice doing so also in the bedroom. Like Timaree mentioned, it is a process that we are all on, and our relationship with our sexuality does change over time. So Timaree, is there anything else you'd like to add on talking about sex positivity and our bodies?
Yeah. One of the things that I like to say a lot is it can be really scary to talk about sexuality with a partner. There's a lot of different things that we fear might happen. We're afraid that they'll say no. We're afraid that they will think that we're weird, or that there's something wrong with us, or there's any number of things that we've been conditioned to be afraid of because those things happen. Like, there's a lot of sex negativity in the world, and we have at various points been shamed for the things that we want and who we are. So we approach with this fear-based perspective. But with that said, what I like to remind people is you have to give others the opportunity to be cool. If you want to tell a loved one about a part of your identity, a thing that you're into, something you'd like to try, a feeling you have to give them the opportunity to accept you and love you and to try and to be open-minded. And it's surprising often when I talk to people who are trying to figure out how to talk to a partner about, I want to try this thing, or I want to tell them about this desire I have or this fear I have, and I'm just so afraid. Like, give them the chance to be like, oh, that's interesting, I want to know more about that, or be like, cool, I'm into that also, or whatever, because that's amazing when that happens. And that is how relationships deepen. That's how intimacy is built, is through that shared vulnerability. When we are honest and reveal parts of ourselves, and someone else then bravely does the same. And that's the only way we can get deeper into a relationship. By shutting down, by fearing someone else's response might be negative and never giving them the chance, we can't get really close, and we don't grow as individuals or together. So I just encourage positive affirmations and being open when someone comes to you with something. If a lover comes with their question or their fear or their idea, to be open-minded also. It's fine to say no to things. That's completely fine. But at least to contemplate, how do I really feel about that? Or am I saying no because that's weird, or people will think we're weird, or whatever? But really, like, searching your own reactions and desires and wishes and fears. Because so much is built on rules that we get from other people, from institutions, from stereotypes. And if they go unquestioned, we're not actually making the choices ourselves. We're just, like, sort of operating as though we're computer programs, and that's not who we are.
So I'm learning some cool things from you. I'm learning the term unpacking baggage, and I'm also really loving what you're saying about giving others the opportunity to be cool. I think this is a fantastic way to encourage, for me to encourage my clients to face up to their fears instead of letting it go on and really not meeting it at all.
Because there's a lot of expectations that this is what everyone does. For instance, everyone is heterosexual. Everyone is monogamous. Everyone wants to have kids. All of these things are messages that we get. But in reality, that's not true for everyone. Those are true for some people, but not for everyone. And it can be very terrifying to reveal yourself as someone who is not the average. But it's amazing to be able to reveal that and to live authentically and then to be accepted for who you are, because that's actually a really good way to figure out who loves you for you and who loves you for not being challenging. So, you know, if somebody wants to come out to a parent as gay, or they want to come out to someone they're dating as, you know, I think I might be polyamorous, it can feel amazing to have that parent be like, cool. And to have that date be like, oh, that's interesting. I think I might be into that too. And then you get to experience life more.
Mm. Yeah. Great. It's about being real. And really what you were talking about just now, which is about being powerful. So this is just so nice to be hearing all the things that you're sharing, and also the energy that is coming forth from you. It's really very, very positive, and I hope our listeners are able to get that kind of energy that she's emanating from her words. And so I'm very curious because this show, Eros Evolution, always explores the link between sexuality and spirituality. So what is your perspective on this? I'm sure you teach in your colleges. However, I'm not sure whether the link between sex and spirituality is addressed as part of your teaching. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
That's a really interesting question. Yeah. For me personally, I have my own set of beliefs and my own philosophies, and at the core of my values as a person and also as an educator is finding a way to convey information that's accurate in a way that can be integrated no matter who my student is. So I'll get students who come from very conservative Christian backgrounds, who come from a Buddhist perspective, who come from Wicca, who come from no religion, Judaism, etc., whatever. And I want to be able to convey information that no matter who they are, no matter what they believe, they can take from it what is scientifically accurate and what will be useful to them. It's not supposed to change anybody's mind about their beliefs. I'm not in the business of converting people to a different religion. I want them to be able to integrate the values of care for others and self-empowerment within whatever their perspective is. I come from a place that considers sexuality to be a spiritual practice, to be a part of your spiritual communication with the universe. And that's just my perspective. And someone can have a different one. But a lot of, religions, as you know, have a place for sexual expression that is very positive, that is about love, that is about building relationships, that's about communicating with creation. And I want people to find the opportunities within their own belief systems to integrate a sex positive perspective. There's a lot of where I come from, especially in the middle of America, there's a very big perception that religion and sex have to be in opposition, and that's not true. And it's a very bizarre perspective that I'm not entirely certain why it happens, because I think spirituality is an incredible source of power. And an incredible source of, strength in times that are challenging. So is sexuality. So it seems like a natural fit to me, and I want everybody to find that way that they can integrate both together.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate what you're sharing. Having students from different backgrounds, religion and spirituality can be very sensitive, especially I think in the academia kind of world that you're in. And I appreciate how you also shared about your personal perspective, how they don't have to be in opposition with each other. So in your sex life, do you also feel that you are able to incorporate aspects of sexuality into your expression?
So in my personal life?
Yeah, sure. Like, how sex is spiritual in any way in your life as well?
Okay. I see. I think I understand. I consider my spiritual perspective includes the idea that it is my job to show kindness to other people, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to share with them what I can, energy-wise, and to that sort of thing. And that means being kind to strangers on the street, and it means being genuine and vulnerable with partners. And that is how I feel like I am an ethical person, and through that I have a spiritual experience. I don't know necessarily that my spiritual practice has like specific rules of like what is and is not okay. It's more a matter of like, is this action one in which we're communicating and we're experiencing, or am I checking out? Like right now, am I just like up in my head and my body is doing a thing and I'm on my own, but there's another person here? Like, to me, that would be failing to engage spiritually with someone in a sexual way. And it's, again, in our culture where we're engaging with each other through technology a lot of the time, it's really easy to get separated and not be physically present. So that's an ongoing dilemma for people, both in terms of relationship satisfaction but yeah, also spiritual practice.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So going into our last 15 minutes after this break.
With Om Times Radio, IOM FM.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Om Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Om Times endeavor. Host your show with Om Times Radio Network. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back to Eros Evolution. We are into the last 15 minutes of our show, and we're talking about sex with Timaree, Edutainment, on the most important topic of all. So far we've talked about the use of our body as a vehicle and how we can practice being in our bodies in different ways. For instance, workout, exercise. We also talked about what sex positivity means, how we can be sex positive, and we also explored the link between sexuality and spirituality. And I really liked what Timaree was just sharing just before the break about how she practices being spiritual when she's sexual with someone. This includes asking herself whether she's checking out. And these are all very simple ways in which we can be spiritual ourselves during sex. So, Timaree?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
So, I just wanted to ask you, the title Edutainment, like what did you mean by that?
So edutainment is a portmanteau. It's a merger of two different words. So
yes,
it is. Yeah, it's education and entertainment combined together. So that's sort of just naturally what I like to do. That's how I like to live my life. Is being like sort of entertaining and full of data that I can convey to people that is somehow useful to them. So that's what I'm about. That's the kind of product that I want to put out there. And it's when I first started doing sex education, which is a very long time ago, there weren't really sources of information that were both scientifically based and also fun. There were some that were lots of fun, but they weren't really good at science, didn't really understand what they were talking about, weren't necessarily trained. And then on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of the information that was very factual was very dry and unfun. So things have gotten much better since I started, because it's been a long time. And it's much easier to become educated around sexuality in a, properly educated. There are more options for people to get that sort of training. So you're more likely to come across folks who are good at being entertaining and also know what they're talking about. And that, I think, is the best way to convey information around sex, because sex is interesting and it's funny, and there's weird noises involved, and it's a lot of fun. So when we treat it as an entirely serious topic, that isn't necessarily accurate, because in reality it can be ridiculous. So I'm about making it useful, but you have a good time while consuming the information.
I really like what you're sharing, because I can totally see you being able to bridge the gap between the two and doing a good job from it. Like what you're doing with your podcast. Yeah, fabulous. It's really, really amazing, because I think this is a new wave or next wave of sexologists coming forward who are able to bridge the two. Like the way we were brought up differently from being just scientifically based only, but actually presenting in a way that can reach out to younger audiences. So yeah, really good. I really like, I'm glad I asked this question, because I wasn't sure, and I can totally see you being able to do that well.
Thank you. To me, it's about access, because we are out there fighting to have our voices heard over a cacophony of other voices around sexuality. And we don't have the kind of budgets that big companies do that use sexual images to sell their products. So there's a lot of messages around, that we just see on magazines, and they're just on billboards and on television. And we're battling to be heard in this big, cacophony. So it's important to be entertaining so we can compete. And then hopefully people will come across us because we are interesting, and they'll stay there because the information's good and it continues to hold their attention. So that's our best bet as people who are fighting to have a sex positive, scientifically based perspective get out there in this big old slew of voices.
Really good. Keep going, girl. I think you're doing so good, and really you're doing us proud. And I can see your name in the headlights. Like, you're really a rising star in this field. So on that note, what do you think? Yeah, it's true. Really, I'm not just saying it. I really think you're awesome.
I think you are too.
Yeah. So having said all this about this link between education and entertainment, so what do you think is the next big cultural wave that you like to see in sexuality?
I want to see more intersectionality. And by that, I mean more representations of different types of experiences and views. So not just, like I'm a white woman from America, blah, blah, blah. Like, not just my experience, but everybody from everywhere who come from all the money in the world and none of the money, and who want different things. And I want more range of experience to be represented, and I want that to reach everybody. So not just these segmented channels where Black folks talk around Black sexuality like that's somehow not interesting to everybody else, or that the rest of us shouldn't listen to it. We don't have something else to learn from it. So just everybody's voices being boosted into this larger conversation. And I want to see everybody feeling good about whatever their particular interests are, and not needing to find a label that makes it okay to be who they are. There's a lot of labels that people find empowering, like to hear that other people experience the same thing as you and that there's a word for it can be empowering. Like to hear about, let's say, like demisexuality, being like, oh, I didn't know that word before, but it sounds like other people have the same experience I do. And in case people don't know, demisexuality is the idea that someone doesn't just necessarily like walk around feeling sexually attracted or sexually aroused, but through an intimate emotional connection can develop sexual feelings for someone. So that's what's usually meant by the term demisexual. So for instance, a word like that, someone can come across that and be like, oh, that's really useful because I didn't know that I wasn't weird. I thought there was something wrong with me. No, there's other people like this, and this is just how I experience it. So it can be helpful, but at the same time, not feeling boxed in by those terms. That just because I am a woman, or just because I identify as queer or bisexual or something, that doesn't mean that I have to behave a certain way. Just to feel free to listen to your own needs and wants and fears and make decisions based on what's going to be the best for you. So empowering everybody to make those sort of decisions, and to be aware that there are more options, that there are always, always, always more options.
Yeah. I love what you're sharing, because I think more so now than ever, as we have more access to information through the internet, more and more people who used to feel marginalized or have no access to understanding themselves are now able to, like this term demisexuality that you just mentioned, they are now able to understand more about who they are and then have the terms to express it. That by itself is empowering, like you said. And as more and more of these different forms of expression starts to become clearer and communicated more regularly, I think it starts to really break down a lot of barriers and stereotypes, and I believe that the world that we live in will become better, and it has to start somewhere. Usually, it starts from people, I feel, who have more access to technology, to information, who tend to be more educated. And I feel that it's a very exciting time that we're living in. Things are changing, and people are becoming, I feel, less repressed and more expressive and more empowered when it comes to understanding about themselves and also with their sexuality. What do you feel about that?
About people being more empowered?
Yeah. I feel that our generation is quite different from our parents, and then the younger generation is also much more vocal and much more less likely to just allow their sexuality to continue to be repressed. So I feel it's very exciting.
Yes, I'm very enthusiastic about young people growing up today. And there's a lot of people who don't feel that way because they think that, someone who's had access to the internet their whole lives are just going to be really messed up by the availability of porn or something like that. But I think the kids coming up now are great. They are much more likely to be aware of and respectful of different experiences and different viewpoints. And I think that young women are more likely to stand up for themselves and be like, look, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I am not entitled to the same rights and access. And I see all these young feminists come up and I'm just like so excited by that. At the same time, there's a lot of conservatism. The kids growing up today actually are extremely conservative in some ways that I find interesting. And just as long as everyone is accepting that others might share different views, then I think that we have a great deal of reason to be hopeful. As long as we're all respectful and we give other people the opportunity to do their own path, then I'm really excited about it. And the internet is a really big part of that we can find others who agree with us. We can learn about experiences that are different from our own without having to go against our own values. So the existence of these social networks is so invaluable to us.
Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for being on this show, and you can check out Sex with Timaree by going to her website. That's sexwithtimaree.com, and also you can find her on Facebook. So tune in next week where we talk about sex conversation with your kids. This has been Dr. Martha Tara Lee with Timaree, and this has been Eros Evolution.